Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Our featured speaker tonight is Doug Ducey. He was previously partner and CEO of Cold Stone Creamery. During his time at Cold Stone, he launched them from a simple ice cream shop in Tempe. A lot of people don't even know it started in Tempe, which I think is pretty cool, to 1,500 locations, nearly 1,500 locations in all 50 states. Since then, it's even gone on to become a global brand, so it's all around the world. In tonight's interview, we get to hear the story about how the business was built. I am personally very intrigued by franchises, and I know that a lot of people could really use the knowledge behind what it's like to take your business to that level. Whether you are literally looking to franchise your business or you're looking to just manage growth in your business, there's some valuable lessons that he's going to be able to give us about that type of experience. And franchising, if you think about it, is actually a very unique business because not only do you have to manage the internal growth of your company, but you also have all these external partners that you have to manage as well. So there's kind of a double hit there. So I'm very excited to hear him talk about the experience and what he's learned through that. So get up on your feet and join me in welcoming to the stage Doug Ducey. Come on up. Welcome. All right, so as many of you know, we like to get a little bit of a start with getting to know Doug as a person. So we're going to start at the beginning. Tell us about your early life, where you're from, where you grew up, what sort of culture and family you were in.
Sure, well, thanks for having me. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. My dad was a cop. I very much consider myself a product of the Midwest and the working class. Lived in Toledo till I was 18 years old, went to Blessed Sacrament Grade School and St. John's High School. My folks split up my junior year of high school. My mom moved out west, and I came out to Arizona in 1982. I did know one person, and I'd never been here. It's been quite an adventure.
Wow. And you've been here since then?
Actually, my career's taken me around the country. Upon graduation from college, I started with Procter Gamble. Mm-hmm. So there was a number of moves in building my career there.
Okay. So did you have any aspirations when you were a little guy of what you wanted to be when you grow up?
Well, my dad was a cop. I liked that. I think I wanted to be a professional hockey player. But by the time I went off to school, I knew I was going to study business. I wanted to go into the business world. And I really chose finance. My family had a lot of financial anxiety. And I thought, I'm going to study finance because I want to avoid that.
Were you always kind of a numbers guy? Did numbers come easily to you, or?
I would say that numbers came somewhat easily to me, but when I graduated from Arizona State, I worked my way through college at the local Anheuser-Busch distributor, which was a great job to have in college, you can only imagine. But it was, Anheuser-Busch is one of the finest marketing companies in the world. It's changed a little bit since they've been purchased by InBev, which is an international company. But when I was there, it was an incredible, mighty marketing machine. So I felt like I was studying finance, but I really enjoyed the sales and marketing side of the business. And when I graduated, I didn't want to do any of the jobs in the finance sector. But I was able to go with Procter Gamble, I think, on the strength of what I learned at Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, wow, that's cool. And what did you do at Procter Gamble? Tell us a little bit about your time there.
So I was in charge of sales and marketing. I started out as just a sales rep in the Los Angeles market. I was on the food service side of the business. So Procter at that time was a 150-year-old company. I think it was $30 billion in sales. Wow. And the glamorous positions, if there's glamorous positions at Procter Gamble, were in the grocery store, packaged soap and beauty care. But I was put into food service and lodging. And that was all the products that weren't sold in the grocery store. So everything that Procter did to food service distributors, hospitals, and restaurants. So it was really the smaller division. It was $1 billion business, but if there was anywhere at Procter & Gamble that was entrepreneurial, it was the food service and lodging division. So I enjoyed that a lot, and I learned a lot about food service and what makes restaurants successful, and we sold our line of products through the restaurants.
And then after your years in sales, did you go into any other positions at Procter & Gamble?
Yeah, I rose in management at P&G and was in their management training program. A great, I mean, I can talk a lot about Anheuser-Busch. on Procter Gamble, both in terms of investment and training in the individual.
That's cool.
Yeah, excellent sales training and management training. I would actually say much of what I used to build Cold Stone Creamery, I learned at Anheuser-Busch and P&G. It was actually the Anheuser-Busch distributorship here in town, Hensley Co, which is one of the finest, and I think their largest franchise. It was what they call it in the country. So yeah, I took on management positions at P&G. I kept wanting to get out of California.
What? Who wants to get out of California?
Only someone from Ohio would want to get out of California.
Okay.
And I did want to come into school here at Arizona State. I loved it here, and I loved it back in the Midwest. And California, when you are starting out your career, it is difficult.
Yeah.
It is, the cost of living
there.
is just overwhelming.
That's true.
So, I had good managers and mentors, and they said, Doug, you know, you really are getting a lot of attention because you are in California. This is the largest food service marketplace in the world, and it was. And the number one brand that I was selling was Folgers. And my job was actually to take it off the grocery store shelf and sell it into the restaurants. And to people that are of your age, which is considerably younger than me, that may not sound unusual, but at the time, you know, 20 years ago, people didn't go into a restaurant and order coffee by brand name. They just said, give me a cup of coffee. And they took whatever was poured in their cup. And it was really Farmers Brothers and other nondescript brands that owned that marketplace. Folgers decided to get in that marketplace, and we had an unbelievable amount of success. Folgers was the number one best-selling coffee brand in the world at that time, so it was an easy sell to the restaurateur. But at the same time, there was another company called Starbucks that was starting up. And I actually got a lot of accolades at P&G back in Cincinnati for the success we had building the Folgers brand in the food service marketplace. And the culture of P&G is I would address my superiors as Mr. Kenny and Mr. McRedmond. Anybody that was above your one-up manager, you called Mr. And I remember I won this, they called it the 5-Star Award back in Cincinnati for the amount of Folgers distribution we had created. And I said, you know, I appreciate this and thank you, but there's a brand that, you know, people are standing in line for. And you could brew a cup of Folgers at that point in time for less than 5 cents a cup. And Starbucks was at about $2. I said, people are waiting in line and paying $2 for this coffee called Starbucks. And one of my superiors said, oh, Ducey, that's a fad, that's a fad. Just keep selling the red can. And
So do you still drink Folgers, or did you get all Folgers'd out?
I wouldn't say I'm Folgers out. I mean, I could still tell the quality story of Folgers right now in terms of the Arabica beans versus the Robusta beans. But, you know, I'd like to think that Cold Stone had a lot to do to change how America saw ice cream, and Starbucks certainly laid the groundwork as to how we viewed coffee and that experience inside the stores.
That's true. So speaking of which, you came to Cold Stone at a very pivotal point. It was an ice cream shop in Tempe, just starting to expand a little tiny bit. And what made you leave this kind of budding career at Procter Gamble and decide to be Mr. Ice Cream?
Well, I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I mean, I knew that, and Procter went through a restructure. And it was, now that word is very common, but at the time, this was the first of the American large restructurings and reorganizations. And that worked out really well for a 28-year-old. It didn't work out so well for my boss, who was 44 years old. And I just think it had me thinking, boy, what do I want to do? My favorite class at Arizona State University was my entrepreneurship class. There was a guy who taught that, Claude Olney. He since died, but he was just fantastic. And he brought in all kinds of entrepreneurs into class, and they would, you know, they'd take the whole class and talk, and he'd basically do this. And then have different examples of cool things that people had done around the country and around the world. So I thought that's what I wanted to do when I was in school. You know, why am I not pursuing that? So I basically started to look at different franchise opportunities. I really liked the franchise model, but through the due diligence, I came to the conclusion that I'd be a better franchisor than franchisee.
Really? How come?
Well, I guess I thought that my background and record was worth something of value. And as I talked to a lot of franchisors, it seemed like all that was important was the amount of money that you had and who was first in line. And my experience, at least at P&G and Anheuser-Busch, was it was all about the people. It was all about the right people in the right places. You know, we each have different DNA and skill sets and natural strengths. And I thought, you know, being in the food service side of the business at Procter Gamble differentiated me from other franchisees. But that wasn't how a lot of the franchisors saw it. So I thought, you know, if I am able to put this model together as franchisor, we're going to be selective in terms of who gets to grow inside our system. And we thought, you know, operational excellence inside a store is so important that you have to have that. So the people that were the better operators really got to go to the front of the line at Cold Stone Creamery. And I think it was part of the reason we were able to grow at the pace that we grew.
Oh, very cool. So explain to someone who owns a small business and would like it to consider taking it to that next level of franchising, what they should do operationally and otherwise to prepare their business to be able to become a franchise.
Well, I'm a big fan of franchising. I think it's a great American model. It was, you know, you give the credit to Ray Kroc, who was the founder of McDonald's, who really designed this franchise model. And there's the book Under the Golden Arches by Scott Love, and Ray Kroc wrote a book called Grinding It Out. And you know, Ray Kroc was yesterday's Bill Gates. He was the richest man in the world. He found McDonald's when he was 52 years old. It was just it was a single store in San Bernardino, California. So it's unbelievable what Ray Kroc did at McDonald's. And these books are so well written about franchising and how he discovered, he and his team, how to unlock the value in the franchise model. And you'll crave quarter pounders if you read Under the Golden Arches. It's just, you can't believe the system that they built to build these stores. And there's a lot of things that McDonald's does that's really unique in America and now around the world. So it was really through reading Under the Golden Arches that was this idea of that franchising is the model. And what I told Christy is I didn't really choose franchising. Franchising chose us. We didn't have any money. And so when you don't have any money, you have to either raise it or be creative. What's great about the franchise model is people put up their money for your idea, and your role then is to make them as successful as possible. And that's what we did at Cold Stone, and we learned a lot of that through, we actually ended up hiring a lot of the best and some of the top people from McDonald's to work in our system.
Wow, how interesting.
And had former McDonald's franchisees. So there was a lot we learned from McDonald's and Subway as well, and Starbucks.
Okay, so explain in layman's terms the structure of a franchise, the responsibilities of the franchisor, the franchisee, and what that ongoing relationship kind of looks like, just, you know, within ranges of what typically happens.
Sure. So to just really simplify it, I'll use the McDonald's model. There was a McDonald's store in San Bernardino, California. Ray Kroc found the McDonald's brothers inside that store. They became partners. And then people wanted to open up McDonald's. Those stores that were opened up become franchises. They basically, what's important in franchising is uniformity, consistency, and system-wide adaptation. So you want to walk into a Cold Stone, and we want it to smell and feel and look like a Cold Stone, whether it's in Toledo, Ohio, or Tempe, Arizona, or Tokyo, Japan. So it's that idea that you'll see a model and you think the model works, and then that model or that corporate office, whatever you choose to call it, can franchise that. Now, McDonald's has become much more of a millionaire's game. I mean, you have to have incredible capital to open up a McDonald's. So something that you might think of from an entry-level entrepreneur franchise opportunity would be a Cold Stone Creamery or a Subway. You see a lot of these sub-stores, the Jersey Mike's and the Jimmy John's, even Potbelly's. These are much smaller, more affordable models. And I think also if it's something you're considering, to really be introspective and think, am I a franchisee? Do I want somebody to set up a system and then I'll replicate it and make it happen? Or am I more creative and innovative? Would I be a better franchisor?
There's a big difference between those two. One likes rules and one doesn't, right?
I think there's a lot to that. You know, I've got some friends that used to give me a lot of grief that would say, oh, I want to be a franchisor. I mean, all you do is collect these checks, and then, you know, people go sell ice cream, and they pay you royalties every Tuesday. And one of them actually tried it, and he's like, God, this is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, people never stop complaining. So I think, you know, we really had, our model was that our customer was the franchisee. If you walk into Cold Stone Creamery's headquarters, even to this day, I sold the company in 2007, the first sign you'll see from the employee side is, what are you going to do today to make our franchisees successful? So the idea was that we existed to support our franchise community, and then our franchise community existed to benefit the customer, to serve the customer. So not all franchises are successful. Not every franchisee is successful. This is America. Success is not guaranteed, but we're proud the overwhelming majority of our franchises were successful, not only nationally, but internationally. The company operates in 25 countries around the world today.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So on a tactical level, so the franchisor provides the product. They provide all of the parts and pieces of that product. So you have, as a franchisor, a lot of work around that, right? You're managing that whole part of the process.
So you can think of the franchisor actually provides the brand or the structure, and you can have the screws as tight or as loose as you like. I mean, I think as a franchisor, you know, our franchise agreement was about this thick, and it was overwhelmingly one-sided, okay? And I had a lot of people, I remember I had a really high-quality individual entrepreneur who wanted to open up a Cold Stone Creamery, and he was a Northwestern graduate of their law school. And he came in and he probably had 100 Post-it notes inside the franchise agreement. He's like, who would ever sign this franchise agreement? It's so one-sided for you. And I said, well, that's the way we wrote it. I mean, it's here to protect the good franchisees and to protect the brand. I mean, if you're doing things right, we're never going to bother you. But if you go in and you change the sign in the store, or you decide to start, you know, selling chicken noodle soup on the stone with a Bunsen burner, well, I mean, we've got to have a way contractually to stop you. So I felt we had a very good franchise model, and it put us in charge, but then it's incumbent on you to be in charge of what happens inside your system. There are other models that are much looser. Now, we loved innovation in our franchise system. If you read Under the Golden Arches, you'll find out that the Egg McMuffin was not invented by McDonald's corporate office. And actually, Ray Kroc told the franchisee to quit doing it. And the franchisee was so persistent that Ray Kroc went out to visit, and a whole new day part was born in McDonald's, and now they, you know, have the largest breakfast business in the world. So I would tell that story of, you know, I really think the best ideas are going to come from our franchisees. And I'm open-minded to any idea as long as it will benefit the brand and benefit the collective franchise community. Meaning, you know, we can't do something that only works in your store, Christy,
right,
in your city. We have to be able to reapply it so that we have that uniformity, that consistency, and that system-wide adaptation. And we got all kinds of great ideas from our franchisees.
That's cool. Now, obviously the brand itself comes from headquarters, but when it comes to marketing, what's typical in a franchise or franchisee agreement? So
my brother wanted to, or was thinking of getting involved in Cold Stone Creamery, and he came to me, and I was going to do an Ohio market meeting, and there was going to be a new location opening up in Newport, Kentucky. We thought it was going to be a great location, and I knew my brother would be a good operator, and Kentucky was going to open, so he said, hey, I'm considering doing this. Do you think there's any chance I could get a franchise? And I said, sure, I imagine we could work something out. He said, but I want to, he goes, I want to find out what's going on. Can I come to the Ohio market meeting? So he came to the Ohio market meeting. We had it in Cincinnati. We probably had about 50 people in the room, and I had done these market meetings 100 times before this. And you go for about half an hour on the marketing plan on what's going to happen, you know, over the next 90 days. And then you have 60 minutes of Q&A from your franchisees. And afterwards, we got in the car and we were driving. We were going to go out to dinner. I was going to stay the night at his house and fly home the next day. We're very close, godfather to his oldest son. So he was quiet in the car, and I said, what's wrong, Nick? And he said, I don't know how much you think that company will be worth or how much money you're getting paid, but I wouldn't put up with that for all the money in the world. And I remember thinking that it was just a normal market meeting, but they were talking about marketing.
Right.
And with franchisees, I mean, part of it is we had a structure where it was a 6% royalty, which is that's what you pay the headquarter office, and then 3% advertising. 2% of that came to the headquarter office, 1% stayed in local dollars. And every franchisee has an idea on what the best way to market is. Mm-hmm. Some think it's buy one, get one free. Someone want to give away ice cream. Everyone wants to be on TV. Everyone wants to run commercials. So we really had to take charge of that because the power in franchising is really bringing those dollars together in a unifying mission as to what you want to accomplish. And until you get to be about $10 million in revenue, or I should say in advertising collections, it doesn't make sense to go to television. So all the way up until that, you have to have a different strategy. We went on a public relations strategy with Cold Stone Creamery. We thought it was more important what people said about our brand than what we said. So we really aimed at influencers, and America has very much a celebrity culture. And we found a lot of celebrities that really looked good and were fit and loved our ice cream. And you would find them eating it in People magazine mm-hmm. and all the best publications. And it really drove our sales.
Oh, I'm sure. That makes sense. So now you touched on something interesting there because every person that is an entrepreneur or a business operator, they have to have a really kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to a certain extent to even take that step to become a franchisee. But it also, as a franchisee, they have so much structure to deal with that, I mean, I know, like I said, I licensed my business, and just trying to give them that balance of structure and freedom is kind of ever a tango, I would say. So how do you, what are the qualities that you look for in a franchisee? What do you think is that right mix of that zest to be able to pull off owning a business and being a leader, but also to be able to stay contained within the structure?
Christy, this is the biggest question.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
This is the biggest question.
I want the answer, personally.
I think that I got much better and we got much better at people selection, and it really is in anything you do. From marriage to your business is about people selection. It's about putting the right people in the right places. So we made, of course, you make a lot of mistakes. I mean, the best way to get good at these things is to make decisions. So we made a lot of decisions on locations. We made a lot of decisions on franchisees and people. But I think what we found is we wanted to find people that had passion for the brand. This was more than just a business. And realize we franchised Cold Stone Creamery. The height of our growth was from 1996 to 2007. These were go-go days. Okay, there was none of my friends were coming to me and saying, wow, how did you get so lucky with Cold Stone? The economy was growing. People were, jobs were being created. It was hard to hold on to good employees. I had my vice president of marketing come to me and say, Victoria's Secret's called me. They want to hire me. You know, I mean, how do you counter that offer? And they wanted to pay a lot more than what we were paying. So, but we did get better at it. But at the same time, I think it is really half art and half science. I mean, it's part of that interview process. It's part of that review of the resume. It's part of that recommendations. But then you also have to count on that people are being honest with you, that they're really telling you what they want to do. I used to think of it in terms of this, this horizontal graph of if you took the greatest entrepreneur in the country, let's pick Steve Jobs. Okay, Steve Jobs is over here. It's, you know, wildly successful, but look at everything he's done, from Apple to being fired from his own company to Next to Pixar. Okay, and then you go all the way over here to the job with the most security that you can think of. You know, I don't know what you would pick. Working for the United States Post Office, or someplace where, you know, there's just longevity, and, you know, you will not lose that job. So where do you fall on that scale? And we would think that franchisees would fall somewhere, you know, closer to Steve Jobs. than they would to the United States Postal Service. But in franchising, you go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. So there is some partnership there. There is some relationship. Oftentimes you see people that are budding new entrepreneurs, and what do they have with them? They have a partner. And why do they want a partner? Well, it's easier to jump, when you're holding hands together. And I think what I'd say, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I would say, why do you have that partner? What do they bring to the table? What do they bring to the party? And the same thing would be if you go into franchising. What does your franchisor provide? What do you love about their brand or their model or the people? After I sold Cold Stone, I had so many people come to me and say, hey, I want to pitch an idea. And I love doing that, because I love being in business. So I always wanted to hear their different ideas. And so many people came to me, and this is cyclical. Ice cream gets very hot, and then it slows down, and yogurt gets hot, and then it slows down. I mean, when we started Cold Stone, TCBY, the country's best yogurt, had 3,300 stores. And then I think it went all the way down to 0. Yeah. And then Pinkberry started, and Red Mango, and this I think, very real shift in Americans looking for more healthful alternatives. So yogurt took off, and I had all kinds of people coming to me and showing me these yogurt ideas. Should I invest in this? Should I open this store? And I always said, well, what are you buying? The franchise fee is $15,000. What do you get for that? And why wouldn't you open your own yogurt store? If it's successful, then you can own the brand. You can be the franchisor. But some people just want that partnership, that proven model. So there's no right or wrong in it. I think part of it's being honest with yourself. We had a wonderful lady that we did not want to be a franchisee. She was married to this is before the internet, so we had a really oppressive application process just to weed out the tire kickers. Ask all these questions we didn't care about just to see who really wanted to open up a store. And this wonderful lady who had never worked, she married her high school sweetheart who became a very successful surgeon in San Diego, and he was getting towards retirement, and we had you list your home address and other homes that you owned. Well, she owned homes not only in San Diego, but she owned one in Tuscany. And so to us, this disqualified her. But she said, no, my husband's retiring, and I want to start a career. And we thought, well, how do we get her to go away? So we said, well, we want you to go work in a store without pay for the full week to see if this is for you. And she said, sure. And she went in, and she was terrific. She was there from open to close every day, making waffle cones, serving customers. And we had thought, just because of her background, that she wouldn't be a good franchisee. She turned out to be a great franchisee. So that was one where a big learning for us. Another one was a guy that had been successful in other businesses. He wanted to own a store. We told him how hard it was. We would always try to, I think people somewhat romanticize ice cream. All of you can remember a childhood memory of ice cream, okay? You can't remember a childhood memory of bagels, but you can of ice cream, okay? It's a very warm, nostalgic product that we eat with people we love. You don't go to ice cream with people you don't like, but you will now and again go to lunch with people you don't like. So these were all things we learned over the course of time. And we had a guy that called up, and he said, I want to sell the store. It's not working out. And I said, it's not. And he wasn't a very good operator. He'd been in the system about 18 months. And I said, was there anything that I can learn from this? Was there anything that we didn't tell you about how hard this was going to be? And he said, no. He said, actually, you told me exactly how hard it would be. He said, I just didn't believe you. I thought if you could do it, anybody could do it. But the thing is, with ice cream, I mean, think about it. People go and eat ice cream at night, and they eat it on weekend nights. We did, 80% of our business on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And who works in an ice cream store? Teenagers. Okay, and sometimes teenagers don't show up. And sometimes when they do show up, they invite their friends in there, or they trade out ice cream for pizza. These are all things the owner needs to pay attention to, and it was an all-cash business for the most part in those days. Credit cards weren't as prevalent. So we got better at how we explained the business, how we told these stories. We never perfected it, but I think we definitely maximized it.
I can imagine that being an interesting dynamic, because people, when they see a successful business, they think that just by simply opening their doors and offering the same thing that they will step into success. And in a franchise, I'm sure that perception is even stronger. but it really does take a business operator that's committed to making it happen.
Absolutely, and you are spot on. It is a business operator. And I know there's a friend of mine here in the crowd, Fast Eddie, who's in the finance and insurance business. If you want to buy a mutual fund or you want to buy stocks, consult an excellent broker. Operating business is not that. You have to operate it. You have to be there every day. It doesn't perform when you don't perform. So, and in those days, I think a lot of people, the economy was much better, so people were getting involved in different things. So we try to be very upfront about what was expected. We had every franchisee come through training, and our training program was 2 weeks. And to this day, if you drive to the headquarters office of Cold Stone Creamery, when you drive in the parking lot, there's a sign that says Ice Cream University. And that's quite a time commitment to ask from an owner. But that's how much we wanted people to commit to operational excellence, which is really the difference inside a store.
So when it comes to, obviously a business has to be efficient and organized and repeatable with not a huge amount of education for it to be a good franchise concept. But when it comes to replicating culture, you know, what kind of steps did you take to, I mean, Cold Stone has a culture. It has a feel to it when you go in there. People sing at you. So yes. How did you keep that culture strong through all of those locations?
It's critical. It's critical, and that's the exact right word. It is that culture of what happens. So it emanates out of the headquarter office. So, you know, we had our creamery team meeting the second Wednesday of every month. Now, we started out as a very small company, but we grew to a couple hundred employees. We would sing every Wednesday. You know, we started at 7:30.
So you guys sing too?
We started at the headquarter office. Everyone would sing. We'd sing inside the store. So you really had to live and breathe that. I've noticed I go into some stores now, and sometimes they won't sing. And I don't think they sing at the headquarter office, or I'm not sure about that. But so that culture of you know, it's the songs you sing, the things that are important to you. We would always talk about our vision. Our vision was that the world would know us as the ultimate ice cream experience. We would measure that by having 1,000 profitable stores operating by December 31st of 2004. Our mission was to make people happy. We had 5 core values: do the right thing, be the best, be number one, bring out the best in our people, profit by making people happy, and win as a team. So we would talk about these things all the time in every store. I, as the leader, had to believe these things and had to own these things. I actually wrote our pyramid of success and you know, put pen to paper on that. And these pyramids hung in every store around the country. And our best franchisees, their crew members, their teenage crew members would know our vision and know our core values. And so if you put that out there through the system, and I'll tell you, one thing that was really remarkable to me about the power of a culture was what happened when we opened in Tokyo. So we went there and we opened, and there's a lot of things people will tell you about doing business internationally. We could probably do a whole show just on that alone, and I really enjoyed that part of the business. But I came back for the year anniversary after the store opening, and the teenagers in Tokyo would hold hands before a shift and chant the core values of Cold Stone Creamery in English. So the culture was much different, and you know, American teenagers don't chant core values before the shift. But it really did have something to do with the success of the brand around the world. And like I said, it wasn't perfect, but we're very proud of it.
Yeah, I'd say. So not only are you building a franchise and a brand, but internally you have to build a company to support that. So what were some of the first people that you hired? How did you divide the responsibilities? How did you form this company that grew to so many employees? What was your kind of early part with that?
Well, that was where a lot of the Procter Gamble training came in, and I don't think I really even realized it because I saw P&G as such a big corporation. You know, and I was somewhere, you know, in the middle of it. But then as I saw it, the structure of P&G from Cincinnati to the regional office in Irvine, California, to what my role was in middle management. Well, that same type of structure applied at Cold Stone Creamery. And in the beginning, it was kind of everybody did a little bit of everything, whether we needed to roll in a cooler or a freezer into storage or call back a potential franchisee. But then we did start to think, okay, who's good at dealing with franchisees? Who's really good at operations? Who's good at training? And where do we have gaps? And then we hired to what we needed, and we filled in the blanks. But like any entrepreneur, you're going to do a little bit of everything in the beginning. And I love when people say, I'm not a detail person. I don't handle the details. I would really say if you do want to be an entrepreneur, even though your skills might be much more global and broad strokes, you have to deal with details. You just must. Or you will not be in business. You just won't get off the ground. I think of, because I'm someone who does, in many ways would prefer to work on the broader strokes, on what we're going to do in a vision and strategy and direction. But when we had our first real franchise meeting, we used to have meetings. We do it at Cisco Food Service. They give you a conference room, where you take everybody in a cooler and talk about the plan for the year. Well, after we grew to a couple hundred stores, we had a real franchise community, and we had to set a plan for the year. And if you leave that vacuum of no leadership or no messaging, franchisees will begin to talk among themselves. So you had to have a clear plan and tell people, hey, here's how we've done. This is the amount of ice cream we sold. This is our average unit volume. This is how much, chocolate versus sweet cream we're selling, and here's what we're going to do next year. And here's your role in that. So we set that up, and our first big meeting was in Las Vegas. And when you take a show on the road as a small company, and you're going to have a couple hundred people there, that was all about details. And our franchisees would very much evaluate us as a headquarter office as to what was that experience like, going to Las Vegas for a franchise meeting. We did it at the Bellagio. But, it was the whole thing of going over there, almost a year in advance and thinking, okay, I'm a franchisee who's put up their life savings for this concept. And I land in Las Vegas, and I need to get to the Bellagio, and I've never been here before. So what do I do? How do we make that an experience that they say, I am part of a great organization? And it was a lot of details, and it won over unbelievably well. And that franchise meeting grew and grew and grew, and it was a great way for us to keep that culture, to amplify that culture, and to just reward our best franchisees.
That's cool. So when it comes to still back at the headquarters, you came in as the business guy that was able to really lift this company, but you had a partner to work with too. So what was it like? Because I know sometimes the founding partners are so attached to what they've done and how they've done it and whatnot. So what was it like? How did you manage the growth of this business having some founding partners there?
Well, I think it's always about communication and relationships. So just understanding what was sacred. And my partner and I, Don Sutherland, and we were 50-50 partners on the day of sale. And I know that we had a unique relationship. We really never had a bad day. We got along wonderfully. And to this day we do. He's a wonderful man. And really what the secret of that business was, in addition to everything else we did, was that we had great ice cream. I mean, we made that ice cream fresh on site every single day in every single store. So that is, ice cream is a food product. One of the attributes of quality of food is freshness. So when you go into a Cold Stone Creamery to this day, you're eating the freshest possible ice cream in the country. So I never messed with the ice cream recipe, okay? So after that, I said, Don, I'll never mess with the ice cream recipe. You've nailed it. It's unbelievable. It's part of the reason why we have all this opportunity, but I want to change everything else. And he said, that's fine, and we did.
Nice.
But along the way, there were things, it was incremental. But the Cold Stone that you see today, the red Cold Stone with that unique brand and letters, that was not how we started out at all. It was about the ice cream, so we focused on that. We never lost sight of the ice cream. But we did do some unique things to differentiate ourselves as a brand, and it worked.
Clearly. So when it comes to back to the franchise locations, what were some of the key variables that you noticed between the locations that were successful and that weren't? And also even when it comes to finding a location, how much of that did you give them freedom to do? I mean, I was in North Idaho during those times, and I remember a Cold Stone popped up for a while, and we were like, great, and then winter hit, and we were like, huh, you know, so how much involvement did you have, and what were some of the things that you noticed about the ones that were more successful?
So there's this wives' tale or cliche that says location, 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 and I actually wrote an article for Inc. magazine saying, no, it's product, concept, people, then location. And I still believe that. If you look at Cold Stone #1, the first store, it was built at Southern and McClintock in Tempe, Arizona. I think it's the southwest corner. That's what you would call a C location. We built a worldwide brand with the first store being in a mediocre location or center. But we had a great product. We had the budding foundation of a great concept, and we had a great operator. So a good operator can always overcome a mediocre location. Now, if you've got the right product, the right concept, the right person, then what is next most important? The right location. And if you go into Tempe Marketplace, or into Desert Ridge, or into Kierland, or into the Westlake Village, or Calabasas Commons, these are the finest locations. If you go on 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenue across from the Lion King, you're going to sell a lot more ice cream than if you're one block over. So we did get better at location selection, but it's almost like people selection. I would still say it's 50% art and 50% science, because that location in Idaho that you're talking about, the location that you look at to this day in Prescott, Arizona, phenomenal location, has everything that you want. And back in those days, I think somebody wrote a magazine article calling it America has become Generica, because everything looked like a P.F. Chang's and a cheesecake factory and a movie theater, but we wanted to have a Cold Stone there. And we really didn't care how many restaurants were built, because nobody went to P.F. Chang's for dinner and then to Cheesecake Factory. They had to divide that dollar. But the more restaurants that were there, the more opportunity we had to sell ice cream. So we loved going in those centers. But there's a center here that's close to town, except it's built on the reservation up north. So a lot of locals didn't go there because it didn't support the tax base. So those are things that you necessarily wouldn't know from a headquarter office. We'd rely on local information that we could find from brokers, and that we got better at that. But you do want to find the best possible location. And like I said, we built a good relationship with Starbucks along the way. Starbucks is excellent. We drafted in many ways behind them in finding locations. There was a dilemma with Starbucks, though. They actually found out that if you have 4 corners here, if you have 2 streets and 4 corners, Starbucks figured out that they actually work on all 4 corners. So they became less concerned with the best location. But for years, they were very good at it. And we worked very well together, because Starbucks lit up a center in the morning, and Cold Stone lit up a center at night. So it meant something to that developer. And there aren't a lot of good things that light up centers at night. You can have a lot of problems with, public intoxication or break-ins. But ice cream was good, clean fun. So the developers wanted us in their center. It helped all their other business as well.
What would you say there was like a favorite marketing campaign that you guys did during the years that you were there?
Yes, there was one. You talk about necessity being the mother of invention. We had a young, aggressive vice president of marketing who was very innovative and creative, and it was something about giving away a Porsche and a this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it was really going to capture your attention, but at the last minute we found out that the different trademark laws across state lines wouldn't allow us to do it. We could do that in Arizona, but we couldn't do it. We were now in California, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. So literally, just before we were going to launch all the point-of-purchase material, we found out we couldn't run it.
Wow.
So we're like, what are we going to do? And we had no good ideas. And Survivor was the #1 show in the country at that time. I don't know how many of you have seen it. They put these people out on an island and have them work against each other to see who can survive. And he said, well, let's do a Survivor theme. Everybody loves Survivor. I'm like, well, what are we going to do for Survivor? He said, we're going to put chocolate-covered crickets inside the stores.
What?
And we had no other thought of anything to do. And I said, I mean, we literally had to decide by Monday.
That was the top idea, huh?
So we ordered chocolate-covered crickets. We shipped a case to every store. We had franchisees calling us saying, I'm not going to serve this. I refuse. You guys ding us. You fine us for having dirty stores or having bugs inside our stores. And now you're shipping chocolate-covered crickets to our stores. And I said, you got to go with it. I mean, we have a franchise agreement, and this is the marketing campaign.
Man.
So we got a call from CBS a week later, and we did not ask for approval from CBS or for Survivor to do this promotion. And they said, we want you to come back and be on the morning show with Bryant Gumbel, and I forget who the co-host was, and there was the weather guy, and it was in Times Square. And the lawyer said, you have to be prepared for one, they may ding you on, how can you be doing this without our permission, because we own the brand Survivor. But they didn't. And Bryant Gumbel, to his credit, was eating chocolate-covered crickets. And I was standing in Times Square watching this on the big screen, and we became a national brand overnight. And I felt like I was going from playing, Little League Baseball into Yankee Stadium. But we were able to, we had inquiries for Cold Stone Creameries from across the country. Our franchisees thought we were much smarter than we were on any marketing ideas that we did in the future. But it does show, as an entrepreneur, oftentimes you are scrambling. You are inventing. There is not, perfection is unattainable. So sometimes it's just going with the best possible idea. And chocolate-covered crickets changed our fortunes.
Who knew? Still can't say I'm going to try them, but glad it worked.
They're crunchy. They kind of taste like a M&M.
Wow. All right. So just shifting a little bit back to the rest of your journey since Cold Stone.
Yes.
Throughout the years, you've been on various boards and involved in various clubs. Any favorite experiences through all that? I mean, you've kind of gone and added your expertise to other areas. What's that been like? Well,
I've enjoyed it very much. I love serving in different capacities, and I have a tough time saying no. So oftentimes, people are persuasive or passionate about the cause that they have, and I'll be upfront about whatever time or resources I can bring to it. But I've enjoyed that. I've learned a lot. Sitting on other companies' boards of directors, you really learn about the company, its culture, its leadership, the industry that it's in. And I think in terms of charitable organizations, you learn that as well. So, I've really enjoyed, I sat on the regional board for Teach for America. Teach for America is just an unbelievable project launched by a woman named Wendy Kopp, who graduated from Princeton University. Everybody was going on to be an investment banker. She had no desire to be an investment banker, and she kind of wondered, how did I wind up at Princeton, having gone to public schools, while kids that lived on the wrong side or the other side of the street went to different schools and never went on to a fulfilling career or college. And she really thought it was about the teachers in the classrooms. I just thought that was that organization changed my perspective of what I thought about American K-12 education. I learned a ton, met a lot of unbelievable people. I mean, Teach for America has been such a successful organization. They hire the top 10% of graduating seniors every year, or something close to that actually Google and Microsoft and Yahoo had to go to them and say, quit hiring our employees. And all they offer them is that we're going to train you, and then we're going to ship you to the worst possible school district with the least amount of money. And you're going to go in and you're going to teach these kids, and you're going to bring them up to grade level. So I've learned a lot about from real estate, sitting on real estate boards, and a lot about public policy, sitting on State Charter School Board and Teach for America.
Very cool. Every little piece adds to your knowledge base, huh?
Yes.
So another question: we as entrepreneurs, at the end of the day, we're human.
Yes.
And whether it's through business, obviously right now you're involved in politics, but even just as business owners, sometimes we end up a little bit more in the public eye. And it seems like the more that we get out there, the more we have a volume of feedback to deal with, both positive and negative. So what advice do you have for business owners who love getting out there and making a difference, but sometimes hold back because they don't like having to deal emotionally with kind of the haters in the corner, so to speak? So.
Sure. Well, I would say you ain't seen nothing yet if you're just in business. I used to say you get a lot of undeserved popularity selling ice cream. You atone for it all when you file papers to run for public office. I mean, immediately 50% of it goes away just by the party that you pick to run. So I would say, in many ways, embrace it. I mean, of course, it's a personal decision, but no one is going to be a better salesperson, is going to be a better representative, is going to be a better advocate for your business than you. I mean, nobody loves talking. You get to talk to the owner, to the founder, to the lead person. This is another real benefit and advantage of franchising. When I was leading Cold Stone, every shirt I wore, golf shirt, button-down shirt, long-sleeve shirt, had the Cold Stone brand on it. We were constantly, and so did our entire team. It was amazing. People would come up to us on planes and say, "Do you work at Cold Stone? Cool. You're so lucky. I mean, do you have any ice cream?" We couldn't think of other brands, that people would interrupt other people with, a McDonald's shirt on. And I was going up to visit our franchisee in Anchorage, Alaska. We had a great success story in Anchorage, Alaska. Cool. And the person on the plane said to me, "I know the founder of Cold Stone Creamery." And this was as we're flying up.
They said that to you?
To me, and I said, "You do?" And she said, "Yes. Did you know it started in Anchorage, Alaska?" I said, "I didn't. Tell me about it." So, and I never said that didn't happen, because to this lady's knowledge, Brenda Bagalki in Anchorage, Alaska, who did open our first store in Alaska, founded Cold Stone Creamery. And actually, Brenda told that story at our franchise meeting, meaning in your market where you live, nobody cares about Doug Ducey. And nobody cares about the headquarter office of Cold Stone Creamery in Arizona, in Toledo. This is your store. This is your business. So if it's something that you want to do and you like to do, I will tell you it's good for business. Nobody loves a small business owner like other small business owners and other people trying to make it in the economy. So I would say embrace it. There are always going to be, people naysayers and negasauruses that always want to bring you down. Just don't let them. And you can make a big difference in your business, and it's good for business. It's good for business.
Very good. So where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, you mentioned, and I want to stay focused on the business side of things tonight. This is a really refreshing change from the political world.
Well, so, I chose 10, so we can skip past the middle.
It's perfect. So I could say, I would like to be successfully completing my second term as governor and happily returning to the private sector with my head held high. That would be ideal.
What are you going to tackle after ice cream? I mean, that's a little hard to top, really.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I do like that franchise model, and I do like there's a lot of challenges in public policy and affecting things, although I think it's incredibly important that people engage in that. But I do like the business-like approach in terms of building a business, that if you want to get something done, if you want to open a store in Chicago, you can make the decision to open a store in Chicago. I mean, you have to live with the consequences of those decisions. Public policy is a little bit more difficult than that often.
It's true. Anything else you would like to share tonight?
I just think this has been, a great audience. I applaud you for being here on taking an evening and doing this. I learned so much by observing others, listening to other entrepreneurs in Claude Olney's class, by reading books about people that have done it. There's so much more available today. On your iPhone or Samsung or BlackBerry, you can download the TED Talks, and there's just unbelievable things that you can see and learn. And I think everything that you need to be successful and make this decision is there, or not. Maybe it's not the right decision for you. It really is a personal decision, but I applaud you for doing it. I've had a great experience, a lot of highs and a lot of lows along the way, but if you think of it as a journey, I've enjoyed it very much, and I appreciate you having me here tonight.
Yeah, Christy. Of course. Thank you. Well, before we let you go and we go into Q&A time, we play this little game called 21 Questions, where we get to know Doug a little bit. People get to decide whether or not they like you based on these questions.
Okay.
No pressure. Okay?
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Khakis or jeans?
Jeans.
Oceans or lakes?
Oceans.
Running or cycling?
Running.
Wow, that was fast. Favorite business book?
The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Favorite hobby?
Well, I used to play golf, but I've got 3 young sons now. So I'd say reading.
Favorite guilty pleasure?
I like to eat. I love to eat.
Favorite sport to watch?
College football.
Favorite
Go Devils.
Oh, very good. Favorite sport to play?
Golf.
Did it used to be hockey?
It used to be hockey, yeah. And my 3rd son loves to play hockey, so I go and skate with him.
Ah, that's cool. Good.
It's tough when you get to be my age.
Favorite food?
Pasta.
Favorite beverage?
Coffee.
Favorite movie or TV show?
I love Field of Dreams is my favorite movie. And I'm not watching a lot of TV, but probably the last show that I kind of worked my schedule around was Seinfeld.
Wow.
So it was a while ago. I've been busy. Yeah.
Did the math on that. Right. Name a musician you love.
I love Bruce Springsteen.
What's your go-to dance move?
The sprinkler.
Weirdest thing you have ever eaten?
Chocolate-covered crickets.
We have an awesome,
Yeah. I like sushi. In Japan, I just eat what's in front of me. In Japan, they actually serve horse, believe it or not, which I didn't quite feel right about eating.
That's crazy.
But the store in Tokyo was a success, so.
What is the best compliment someone can give you?
I think that I'm a loyal friend.
2 causes you are passionate about.
I'm passionate about American K-12 education, and I'm passionate about economic development at the state level. I think it's the best way to raise people on the economic quality of life strata.
I like that. One thing on your bucket list.
I do like to travel, but I haven't been traveling much outside of the state. So somebody was asking me, because I love the international part of Cold Stone's business, I would like to visit another foreign country soon, and I'd love to go to Israel.
Very good. And if you could have one wish granted, what would it be?
That this race was over.
Yeah, I'm sure. And finally, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate Devotion.
Tell us about Chocolate Devotion. What's going on in Chocolate Devotion?
Well, everyone at Cold Stone Creamery at the headquarter office always paid in every store, so we never took any liberties, but I always like to put more inside the ice cream than what was on the menu, and so I just like a lot of chocolate. So it would be Chocolate Devotion with what is the base flavor, but I'd add Oreos to it and Reese's peanut butter cups.
I
And
see.
I like putting in a chocolate dipped waffle cone as well, preferably Heath dipped.
Noticing a theme here.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's very delicious and satisfying. You won't need dinner after you eat that.
Very good. All right, give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah, I just Googled it, and my goodness, the closest one is 8800 North Scottsdale Road, and I'm so darn hungry for some of your ice cream. We need someplace closer.
Well, Google's a pretty good product, Eddie, but I'm going to tell you there's one a lot closer. There's one at Southern and McClintock that you can go to. And
Worry not.
Hi, Doug. Just wanted to ask you, what was the catalyst or the actual idea that got you to want to start and do Cold Stone?
Well, it was through that process of really looking at other franchises and coming to the conclusion that I would be a better franchisor than franchisee was part of what got me there. And then really just the emotional connection that people had to Cold Stone Creamery. You could even see it at the original store. There is something that's really fun about selling ice cream. People are coming in there with discretionary time, spending disposable income. It really gave a great environment inside the stores. So I think it was that conclusion of franchisor versus franchisee, and then really what business are we in and what do we want to do with it? And there's something I found just very appealing about ice cream.
Chocolate especially.
Chocolate especially. Just the entire category is a great category. And we had some good luck and good fortune along the way as well. When we started Cold Stone, I think there were 5,500 Dairy Queens, 4,400 Baskin Robbins, and 3,300 TCBYs.
Wow.
So some of my old bosses at Procter Gamble would say, the world does not, have you not learned anything in marketing? The world does not need another ice cream concept. But we were doing something just unique and special and differentiated. And those are all wonderful brands, but they would be what you would call price brands or premium brands. We were a super premium brand. And the other super premium brands really left the retail space and went to the grocery stores. And those were Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's. So it left the market wide open for a super premium brand to go into the finest locations around the country. And we took full advantage of that. Will you just tell me your name?
O.D. Harris. O.D. Harris. I own Wise Tax and Accounting, and my question is that what were some of the pitfalls when you were cultivating this franchisee agreements, and was there special steps in the contract so that way if you found that something wasn't working or you wanted to add to it, was that language there, and how did you move forward with those stipulations and cultivating that relationship?
So, OD, yes, I think our agreement improved over time. And I think I may have stated in a way, our agreement, if you were a good operator, we were always going to work with you. The agreement was there so that we could protect us from people that would run poor stores. We had one guy early on that actually took the Cold Stone sign down, put his own sign up, and said, hey, this is a great concept. I'm going to franchise it now. And I'm not going to pay royalties anymore. So, that was a bad day.
Yeah.
That was not a great day for ice cream. So, we learned along the way. That's part of the reason that we want to sign all the leases, so that we would, lease law is more powerful than franchise law. So the next guy that did that, we could change the locks. That was our brand. And you didn't have to come in. If you came in, OD, and you didn't like what the agreement said, you could go and open your own ice cream store. And we had guys that did that too. There's still a store in Coronado on Orange Avenue. It's an unbelievable ice cream place, does a couple $1 million a year. That's a guy that we didn't grant a franchise to. I mean, to this day, he's probably still thinking, hey, I'm sticking it to Cold Stone Creamery. But he didn't want to be part of our system. So it's a free country. You can go and open your own store. So we tried to make the agreement as fair and reasonable as possible and still protect the brand and the good franchisees. People won't sign something that's not in their own best interest. So we would have to get people to understand why we did want to have the right to do what we did. But they would call other people. They'd call Frank Caparino, and they'd call Ruben Navarro, and they'd call Martha Mariscal. And those would be the people that would say, hey, that office will work with you if you run good stores. And people in every market would always say, well, hey, I want to own more stores in this market. How do I get more stores? Well, the way you got more stores in any market was you ran a great store. People would say, but I was in first, so I want to be able to go first. No, you have to. The best operators get the best stores. We actually had one guy in Denver say to us, I want to see, we called ourselves the Creamery. The headquarter office was known as the Creamery. I want to see the Creamery put their money where their mouth is. I want to see you opening more stores. You're franchising all these stores. The stores that we owned were stores to seed a market or to have training. So I said, you know what, OD, that's a good idea. and you live in Denver, right? So we're going to start opening more stores. In fact, we're going to start opening them in Denver. And because when you open a store, you want to get the best possible location, we're going to come into Denver, and we're going to take all the best locations. And then whatever's left over, you can have. He said, no, I don't want you to come into Denver. I want you to go somewhere else. I said, well, we want you to have the best locations if you run the best stores. So we really thought this idea of committing to being the best possible franchisor was important. You can, and some companies try to be both, but it's hard to be both. So we wanted to commit to be the best possible franchisor. We wanted to run the best possible training stores, which demonstrated that we knew how to run a store and could run stores profitably. But we wanted franchisees to own those markets and excel.
Hi, my name's Aaron. If you are in front of an entrepreneur who has an idea that they think is good for a franchise, what advice are you going to give them to get them started in the investigation to figure out if it's a good or a bad idea for franchising?
So Aaron, what I would say, depending on what the idea is, but if I can generalize and say that it's a food service idea, I would encourage you to open a store. You just won't know until you open a store. I've had people come to me and say, I've got a great idea, I want to franchise it, and I know it'll work. And I say, well, you have to open a store. And they say, well, wait, I don't do that. I mean, I just want to franchise it. Well, you have to open a store. You don't have to open 100 stores. You don't have to open 10 stores. But you do have to, McDonald's had a store that worked. Cold Stone had a store that worked. Subway had a store that worked. So I would say that, you have to prove out your model. And it doesn't have to work unbelievably well the first time. There's a great story about the man who started Subway. Their goal was he had a really well-to-do doctor that was going to finance him. His name is Fred DeLuca. Their goal was they were going to open up 10 Subways. That was their goal. The doctor committed. The company to this day is called Doctors and Associates. The doctor committed to financing 10 stores. So Fred had opened up the second store. It wasn't working out all that well. And the doctor called him up and said, hey, Fred, this is not working out. These stores aren't working. He said, what do you mean? We committed to opening 10 stores. We're only at 2. He said, but it's not working. He said, well, we got to open 10 stores. So it was the idea of really proving the model out. They figured it out from store number 2 to store number 10. Now they have 16,000 or maybe even more. So I think, you have to prove the model out if you want to be a franchisor. So I would say, bring it to life. Bring it to life.
I'm Kendra Tillman, and my question is...
Where are you?
I'm back here, sorry.
Okay. Hi.
So my question is, what do you think are the common denominators of franchisees who have longevity in owning a franchise? And then do they typically go on to do other things besides owning the franchise, or do they just end up opening more stores?
Great question. I think an attribute of a successful franchisee is someone who's very passionate about their business. They really embrace that idea that they want to be in business for themselves, but they also don't want to be by themselves. That makes for a great franchisee-franchisor relationship. And when I think of our best franchisees, a guy that really stood out in our system was a guy named Ruben Navarro. He's a fire captain in Riverside, California. This is a guy, he had 3 daughters. One of them went to the Naval Academy. That kind of fire captain. We never had to go help Ruben. Ruben was a phenomenal franchisee. Ruben used to come and talk to our training classes, and we had a lot of people. I could go on and on about Michael Goldman, Frank Caparino, Martha Mariscal, that were like Ruben Navarro's. But when you found that right franchisee, they added value. They brought good ideas. Whenever Ruben sent me an email or the phone rang, I knew we were either doing something wrong that we needed to fix immediately, or he had a good idea that we could reapply right away. The franchisees where it's not working, I still remember, and I won't say the name out loud, but we opened up in a blockbuster location. There was a line around the block, and I went and found the franchisee on the opening night crying back in the kitchen. And I'm like, what's wrong? And they said, all the people, and these teenagers, they're already asking me for days off. I was like, what did you think you were getting involved in? You've been through 2 weeks of training. So they had romanticized the idea of owning an ice cream store, and they never embraced the business, and they never embraced working with teenagers, and we were never able to get that store right until we were able to get a new franchisee in there. So I do think that idea of the relationship, the partnership of franchisee, franchisor, and that you being very, just like any decision you make in terms of working with people, upfront and candid, and then counting on the person that you're dealing with that they'll do the same and they won't romanticize it or say, oh, I thought it was going to be easy because you could do it. So you get better at that, but those are the attributes. And then people that can also commit to that idea of uniformity, consistency, and system-wide adaptation. Those are not the most innovative words in the world, but that is what makes a good franchise hum, is that you walk in anywhere in the world and you know what this brand is.
Very well stated.
My name is Daniel Tillman, and my question is, in the beginning, it can be really tough with the business financial pressures to keep going in the beginning. Do you have a story around that, or ever run into financial pressure that where you wanted to kind of just quit at that time? And then in the end, when you sold the business, what drove you to sell it versus continuing to keep going?
So Danny, in the beginning, of course, I mean, every entrepreneur, I would imagine, is going to face those financial pressures. And I used to say that franchising didn't choose us. We chose it because we needed people that had some money, because we didn't. MasterCard and Visa were very good to us because we extended ourselves out. But we seemed to somehow get over the hump every time. And there were plenty of times where we thought, this may be it, or we're in a real cash flow pickle. Those things are all really fond in hindsight to look back on. But when it's going on, it's real stress and anxiety. I remember I saw one entrepreneur speak, and he was telling his story, and he said that a guy came up to him and said, "Son, have you ever made a payroll?" And he said, "Hell, I've missed a payroll." And I thought a lot about that as we started to bring people on, and they expected their paycheck there every 2 weeks, and we of course had to manage to that. So a lot of high stress and anxiety, and like I said, we had some credit lines that we were able to effectively use and successfully. In terms of selling the business, we had built Cold Stone Creamery to 1,440 stores operating in all 50 states, and we had, I think, 827 in the pipeline. So those were stores to be built, and that was about the size of the American market. So I led the international expansion. I love that part of the business. Picked our partner in Tokyo. Researched the market in Taiwan and South Korea and Beijing and Shanghai. But I had 3 young sons at the time. It's very difficult to do a really productive international trip in less than 2 weeks. So it was the right time to sell the business. And the company that Cold Stone combined with, Kahala, had 13 other brands. So it really made sense. It became a multi-branded franchise portfolio business, and there's a lot of economies of scale for the franchisee that may want to open another store. They can take advantage of their relationship with the landlord, with the food service company, and have another brand open to them. So it was good luck and good timing.
Hi, I'm Catherine of Cataclysmic Design, and I know a lot of people that are entrepreneurs and they don't have a sponsor, they're moonlighting. My question would be, what do you think are the key factors in transitioning from a day job to full-time operation of a startup without burning out or falling into poverty?
Boy, these are, great questions, and a lot of it has to do with personal decisions. I would always, I think, coming from that standpoint of studying finance and wanting to avoid, to the best possible amount, that financial anxiety that I've, witnessed at different times in my life, is that if you can work in a full-time position and transition out, or proof of concept to test a concept, I always think that's preferable. You always want to think of protecting your downside. But I thought you brought up a great point when you talked about sponsors. I mean, by and large, and I'm generalizing here, but this is what you do as you're building a business, entrepreneurs love to talk about their business. They love to talk about the obstacles they've overcome. So oftentimes people don't go to entrepreneurs and ask them, to ask for mentorship, to ask for sponsorship. There's groups like YEO, Young Entrepreneur Organization, which I was a part of. Wonderful organization. Now it's known as Entrepreneurs Organization. I'm now part of a group called the Young Presidents Organization. It's 19,000 chief executive officers in 100 different countries. Any question I could have can be answered by that network. But there are people, you know, right in 5-mile radius of where you live that could be incredibly helpful to you. But you know, this is something Claude Olney would talk about, because you'd have these entrepreneurs come into our college classroom, and they love to talk about their business. And he said, you know, but nobody ever goes and asks them. So if you want to know how to, you know, make money, you can go and talk to people that have made money. If you want to know how to build businesses, I would go to people that have built businesses. You know, properly present yourself and know what you're thinking of doing. But there's a lot of people that would help you, and the answers are right there. And there's a lot of great stuff, like I said, online and in books. And many of the lessons, when I talk about Peter Drucker, you know, Jim Collins came out of the Peter Drucker school. He wrote Good to Great and Built to Last. And there's just a lot of things out there that can help you develop your business. And a lot of people that will help you do it.
True. All right, one more.
Hello, Doug. This is Randy Gustafson.
Hi, Randy.
Yes, good to see you. Often when entrepreneurs are starting in a business, so in your very early days when you partnered with Mr. Sutherland, can you talk about how you surrounded yourself with advisors and mentors, people not directly associated with the business itself, but I often find that's something that entrepreneurs may struggle with initially, and trying to figure out that where they have their weaknesses, how they surround themselves with talent that they need. So can you talk about your specific experiences there with Cold Stone?
Sure. I would say that I think I was a little bit slow to that. You know, when you're running a business, you're supposed to have all the answers, and many of your employees are looking to you to have those answers. So of course you want to do your best, but often the whole adage of, you know, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you know, I used to say that if I'm talking to a franchisee or talking to a customer or talking to a crew member, I know how everybody at the headquarter office is doing. You're also getting a lot smarter. I mean, good franchisees will tell you what they need from the headquarter office, and they really want the headquarter office to stay out of their way. So we had some excellent employees at Cold Stone. Our first employee was a woman named Kim Crampton, and she was phenomenal. We hired a gentleman named Sheldon Harris and Jim Valentino. Our fortunes really changed. These were operators. Sheldon had worked at Costco. Costco's a great model, a great company, get things done very quickly. Jim Valentino had worked in the food service business up in Northern California. But I was slow to that realization. So we kind of grinded along in fits and starts for a few years. I really think our fortunes changed once we started to really hire and pay really talented people, and they made more than, you know, than ownership or chief executives. But that's something as an entrepreneur to bring on that talent. And a lot of times people look for it in partnership, but a lot of times it's there. I mean, the hired guns are the ones that can really change your fortune. They're very smart people that are excellent at what they do. They love the operational side of the business. They love training. They love those things, and they're excellent at it. And when Cold Stone got that right, boy, we took off. The other thing is that surrounding yourself, I think that's important wherever you are in life. I talked about Young Entrepreneurs Organization, or YPO. Those things are available all over the place in different formats. I would encourage you to find settings that aren't so much networking based, where you're really just trying to sell each other stuff. Nothing's wrong with that, but where you're really trying to share best practices, where you can go in a confidential setting and say, I don't get this. You know, I don't understand it, because, you know, your franchisees don't want to hear that, and your employees don't want to hear that. Okay, they're coming to you for answers, but to say, you know, I'm really good at this part of the business. I don't get this part of the business at all, and I think many young entrepreneurs think that they need to become expert in every part of the business. Well, that's just not going to happen. Okay, you have a natural strength or ability that you've learned that will propel your business to the level it needs to go, and then it will be about the people you select to bring on with you that will determine how far it goes. But to find that network, the product we call it in Young Presidents Organization is called Forum, and it's a place where you can go and you can share what's going on in your business and where you need help. And people don't go out and say, well, boy, Randy doesn't know how to write a balance sheet. You know, he's just never going to get to the next level. But a lot of entrepreneurs were not trained financially, so they may not really get a balance sheet. And they may think, well, I have to learn this, but they might just need to hire an excellent chief financial officer and have a great banker. And those are things you learn in those settings. And once I got that right, and once we got that right, we really took off. It is all about the people, whether it's in your personal life or in your business life that you surround yourself with.
Very true. And you know, I will say, Arizona, I mean, we have such a plethora of support for entrepreneurs here. It's actually pretty crazy compared to a lot of markets and the size that we are. There's so many, you know, Randy from the Commerce Authority, and there's just a lot of people out there to help entrepreneurs. So
I would actually make the case that I think we're in the best place in the country for what you're describing. I'm just curious, of people that are here today, how many of you were born somewhere other than the state of Arizona? I mean, look at that. I mean, what is that, about 80% of the crowd that raised their hands?
85.
So I ask that question everywhere I go in what I'm currently doing to really show that we've led in population growth. But what that is, the benefit as an entrepreneur is that people have come from somewhere else to be here. We had a guy on our board of directors named Shelby Yastro. Shelby lives up in Desert Mountain. Shelby was the original general counsel for Ray Kroc at McDonald's. Wow. Okay? He's retired. He plays golf. He gave us all the time in the world. He hung out at our headquarter office. There are people like that all over Arizona that have come here. They liked working, they loved their career, they had a lot of responsibility and authority, but in many cases, they're enjoying their retirement, but they're also somewhat bored, and they would love to sponsor a young entrepreneur. They would love to mentor someone with a good idea. They're everywhere. It's just incumbent on you to find them. And I would say with the internet and all these other things, you can find them. And when you find that right one, Shelby was wonderful for Cold Stone Creamery. He said, Doug, this is like, he's really good at golf, but he said, this is like a mulligan. He goes, I've done all this before. I mean, this is what we did at McDonald's. And the credibility he brought to our franchise community and the counsel he brought to me as a mentor, in addition to being a friend, was, I can't imagine. I had Lawrence Maltz, who led the international distribution of Starbucks, and Shelby Yastro, who was the general counsel to Ray Kroc. And I found them, you know, both by chance, Shelby being here in Arizona.
Wow.
And Lawrence being a graduate of Thunderbird Global School of Management in Arizona.
And I will say, my goal here with Startup Grind is to keep getting the word out so that we can have an informal opportunity each month to bring a lot of the people together that are passionate about these things so that you guys can meet each other. And next month, actually, we have Brian Smith, who is one of the managing partners of Greyhawk Capital, which is the top venture capitalist firm in Phoenix, basically. And I'm really excited about that because just like Doug is such an expert, having lived through the franchise experience and just business leadership, it's really cool when you get to hear how business looks from the investor side and the things that they look for in an entrepreneur to do business with, let alone in a business, but in just an entrepreneur. So we'll keep working to bring all of you guys together to meet each other. And thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate your time and
really
coming out
enjoyed it.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really great. Thanks.